Hey, this is Mira Beck, the founder of Overnight Success Publishing, and I'm here with another episode for our Overnight Success TV, where I interview my friends and other successful people about their journey to success, whatever that means to them. So today, I have the pleasure of having in my studio one of my longtime friends, client, and just the king of taking stuff that's complicated and shrinking it down to something that's super simple. So Christopher Music is in the studio with us today. Welcome, Christopher. Thank you for coming by in person, because a lot of people that show up are showing up on the screen and are remotely part of the show, but appreciate that you took the time to come over today.
Well, thanks for having me.
No problem. So I want to just dive right into this because I know what you do, really. There's no need to do some elaborate introduction from my side. So before we dive into the big strength that you have, which is taking the complicated systems and things in business and shrinking it down to something really simple, I want to just talk about your story first and kind of like, where did you even come from? What's your background so people can connect with you and relate to your background? And I like to usually start with kind of the growing up. Your parents, were you always, brought up in this type of environment, entrepreneurial, all that, or were your parents just kind of the normal folks, doing their thing, like my parents are?
Well, I would say I probably had a pretty normal childhood for being a preacher's kid. Which is a unique experience in and of itself. But my parents were middle class, hardworking folks. My dad's a minister, my mom was a nurse, and we'd never had any entrepreneurial bent in my family really at all that I knew of.
Yeah.
But one thing I found out when I was a pretty young person is that I was one of my favorite words is recalcitrant. Recalcitrant is very basically hard to manage or control.
Okay.
And I realized pretty early on that fit me. And I probably started my entrepreneurial journey when I was 8 years old.
Wow.
And what we would do is we would spend the 2 weeks during every summer, we would camp at a campground in Ohio. And that was our big vacation. And I realized after, probably a couple summers that having money made it a lot more fun than not having money. So what I did is I started to collect beer cans and cut the tops off and then put the wax and the wick in there and then started to make candles. And then I'd also look around at the other campsites when I was there and look at other things that people needed. And we figured out that pot holders to hold hot pans was also needed. So my sister and I would loop these together and make these little kits, and so we'd go to camp in the summer. We would have a wagon load full of candles and pot holders, and by the time the first day was gone, because no one's going to say no to an 8-year-old kid selling a candle or a pot holder at a campground. And I'd have more money to spend for those 2 weeks on candy than anybody else in the campground. So I figured out being an entrepreneur was a pretty cool thing.
That's cool.
Fast forward, I had a mobile disc jockey company when I was in high school and college. So when my friends were working during the week, waiting tables or whatever, I was working on the weekends, spinning tunes and making more money doing that.
That's cool.
And then basically when I got to graduate school in the summer of 1990, I was introduced to a gentleman named Charles Givens, who used to be a huge financial guru back in the late 80s, early 90s, and realized that I had a particular bent toward personal finance. So when I was in graduate school and getting out, I decided that I wanted to focus, because when I was 17 years old, I was sitting in my guidance counselor's office, and I was a trumpet player. I was a really good horn player, and it was assumed with a last name like music that I was going to go into being a professional musician, which I did consider.
Yeah.
And my guidance counselor is asking me, so what school are you going to go to? And I'm sorry, for music. I said, well, I'm not going to go to school for music. She says, well, what on earth are you talking about? And I said, I'm going to go to school for business.
Yeah.
And she says, why would you do that? And I said, well, because no matter what you do for a living, if you don't understand money, you're going to have a hard time.
Yeah.
And she just sat back in this resigned look on her face and said, I can't argue with that. And I'm like, well, I can't either. So that's why I went to school. Of course, I didn't learn much in school. But that's another story for another day.
Sure.
And I got out of school and started a financial planning practice in 1992. It's
wow,
been
so right out of
years.
school.
Right out of school.
Wow.
And that's a story in and of itself too. But But anyway, I've spent the last 25 years focusing on helping people really understand the basics of personal finance and economics so they can basically live a better, more affluent life.
Yeah.
And here I am today.
That's pretty awesome. So, you're one of the lucky ones, of course, by finding this whole finances and actually keeping, building your wealth, I guess, from the beginning. Because most of us here, and probably a lot of you guys that are watching it, we go through a lot of the pitfalls financially through the life, and till you actually finally meet somebody that can guide you through the process. Like with me, my parents, working in a factory, they didn't teach me really much about finances, and I didn't really figure it out on my own till I started meeting people like you and was in this business. So really not 10 years ago, maybe
Right.
5.
Right.
So it took me a while. So that's awesome that you were able to really get into it and keep it as a career. How about that music part? Did you ever end up doing more music, or are you still doing something?
Well, people ask me if I'm a musician, so of course, once a musician, always a musician.
Yeah.
But I really haven't spent a lot of time in music, in performing,
Yeah.
or I dabble around a little bit here
Sure.
and there. But I really spend a tremendous amount of time in research and developing my financial planning system because it's so important
Yeah,
for me to be able to help as many people as I can
totally.
with what I know.
Yeah, and I think it's probably one of the most important things in life. Like you were saying in the beginning, things are much easier with money. Like I've tried both too, and I think Zig Ziglar always talks about how he's tried things with money and without money, and with money it's much easier. So
Well, yeah.
it's important. Plus, not even mentioning, and maybe we'll dive into some of that, but having passive income and having money that you don't have to work for hour for dollar for the rest of your life. I think that's kind of the ultimate financial success. So let's dive into your expertise then. Before we move on to any more of the success keys in life and stuff, let's just dive into some of the lessons that you've learned over time building businesses. And if somebody's watching this show, being in the beginning of their entrepreneurial journey, what kind of pitfalls they can, if they're smart enough to learn from you, not from their mistakes, what kind of advice would you give them to fast track their success and avoid some of the pitfalls?
First thing I'm going to say is you're not going to avoid all the pitfalls. So I developed what I know based on making every possible mistake you can make in personal finance. And instead of saying, well, I'm never going to do that again and blame somebody else, I looked at, well, what law did I violate to bring about that result? And for whatever reason, economics and finance follow basic laws, just like physics or chemistry or any other of the precise sciences. It's actually, money is a very precise science. The reason why it's so complicated today is because you have groups of people that try to obfuscate the subject to make it incomprehensible so that we think it's more complicated than it is. It isn't. So I guess the basic piece of advice I would give is that there is truth in every transaction that you have. There is a natural law that regulates your economic existence. And if you search out those truths, and you know them, I mean, you don't spend money you don't have. That's a pretty obvious thing.
That's a good one.
If you want to make money, you create more value. That's a pretty simple concept. And these aren't quantum math calculations. These are invest prudently, or protect your assets from loss, keep your taxes to a minimum. I mean, these aren't hard concepts. What makes them hard is that we think it's a lot harder than it is. And the way we have to navigate our complex society makes it appear more complex and more incomprehensible. Well, that's not true. So what I've always done is I've been a very keen observer of my results. So if I go into a financial transaction and if I don't get the result that I'm expecting, which is something that's going to make me more income or create a more comfortable life or a better experience or pleasure, the survival, the benefits of economics and finance, then I have to take a look at what law did I violate, because there is something in my thinking or in my activity that violated some basic natural law. Because if I can see someone else make a transaction and they get a great result out of it,
Yeah.
you obviously want to duplicate what they're doing, right?
That's
So
right.
we have to get clear on our own thinking about how all this works. And if the truth is it's simple, if you just eliminate what doesn't work, just do that,
Yeah.
then you've got it made, because the universe is basically pushing you toward expansion and prosperity. So if we think we know more than Mother Nature, then that's where we fall into trouble.
That's right. So I love the value added, providing more value part. Do you want to expand on it a little bit more? And
Yeah.
maybe if you have any specific examples that people that you consult with or the stuff you've done in your practice, how do you add value? Someone that's just starting out or wants to take their business to the next level, what are some of the value added things they can do?
Absolutely. So the question is, people ask themselves, how do I make more money? I think that's a universal question that we all have. And we're looking at it too deep into the sequence of actions to actually get a good answer. The first question you have to ask yourself is, how can I create more value? Because and my clients are professionals,
Sure.
okay, and they are your self-employed or your private practice dentist, chiropractor, a lot of people in the healthcare field, and they're all looking to figure out can I make more money? How can I generate more revenue for my practice and more profit for my household? And the only way they're going to do that is by creating more societal value with what they do. So if you're a dentist, for example, you have to take a look at your practice, and you have to take a look at what services are you providing that are being demanded by your public. So if you give more and more services that your public will consider valuable and pay you more money for, well, that's the secret. It's not really that hard. If you read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, the first thing he says is you got to figure out how much money do you want, and then the second question is, what are you willing to do to get it? Because as you well know, there is no free lunch. And of course, that's one of the aberrations in our thinking, that there is somehow that. But it's the creation of value that really makes the most difference. You can create unlimited value. Therefore, you can actually create unlimited income. So that puts us from a position of being effect, how can I make more money, to cause, where I'm going to create more value and expect that I'm going to get value in return for that. And that puts us in a whole different game professionally.
And it's even more, I think it's more fun too. Like when you're focusing on what else can you provide, it's more fun than just, thinking about getting something for nothing. And this probably is the same universal law, but to me it's always been the more I give, the more I get.
It's the same thing.
And it's basically the same thing. Like you can't give enough away without that stuff coming right back to you. And there's so many things that I've experienced, where you see it, like literally, like do something one day and the next day something shows up. Not that you should be expecting it, of course, but it's nice to observe it, like being aware of it happening. And now it's just more like, hey, I need more money. Okay, what else can we do? I think wasn't it John Lennon that needed a pool and he wrote a song to make people happy, and it kind of did the whole thing. So from your practice then, or what have you done personally that adds more value to your private practice professionals? Because you've done this for years, like you said, 20 whatever plus years. So what would be some of the stepping stones you've done in your business life that added more value?
Okay, so I think the biggest thing that created the value was taking all my experience in building systems and research and scientific method and engineering, and creating a system that worked for everyone every time.
Okay.
Now I come from the world of financial planning, which it never evolved to a science as a profession. You compare that to dentistry, you go to 10 different dentists, you're going to get basically the same procedure, getting a crown or whatever you do. Go to 10 different financial advisors, you're going to get 10 completely different opinions on what to do. And the problem is there's no accountability to results. So that is as far from a science as you can be. It's actually a consultative sales process. So how do we rise above all the noise and create something that is universally applicable and get standard results? So with my training as a business coach and putting together systems, I basically attacked this personal finance
Yeah.
area to basically figure out how do we make a workable program that has standard rules and standard procedures that uniformly create results that you can objectively measure, and of course a system of metrics to measure
Yeah.
it. So that is what I've created. It's called Ecologics.
Okay, that's
now
cool.
let me explain the word real quick. So
Yeah.
that's a new word, and people always
Totally.
stumble over it and so on. But Ecologics is actually derived from the ancient Greek, economy. If you look in the 1953 Oxford English Dictionary, you will see the first definition is the management of a household. Now, that isn't used anymore. You look at any dictionary later, it's not the definition. However, the derivation in ancient Greek from the word oikonomikos, or oikonomos, is management of a household. And that was first coined by Xenophon, who wrote this book called Oikonomicus, which was a conversation between Aristotle and a farmer, Christobulus, about how to manage the farm. Logi means study of, and ecos is practices and skills. So ecologics is literally the study and the practices and skills of the financial management of a household,
Okay.
which is the intent of financial planning.
Yeah.
Do you see?
Yeah.
So we can see right away that from that base of philosophy, we can then generate a system based on natural laws that allows us to navigate the modern economic and financial world to get superlative results. And that's really what we've been able to create
Yeah.
there.
And really, for application to people that actually have some sort of knowledge, then you took it from being a financial planner and working with clients one-on-one to now reaching out to masses by teaching others what you created, your system, and now they can affect thousands, tens of thousands, millions of lives really in a lifetime. So anybody that has a message or system or something, taking it to the next level and getting into the coaching world and the information marketing world, you can really just take it to the next level in your finances and the value added thing, because now you're not affecting just few people, now you're affecting masses by teaching others how to teach what you do. So it's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Well, you know, when I put together this system in the beginning, I never dreamed it would become a subject. You know, it would actually have its own laws and rules and data and procedures. It just kept the research line going, and it's still ongoing. There's still a lot more to work out, but it's all based on getting those results.
Yeah, you got more music left in you.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. You've mentioned now household a few times, so let's I don't want to brush over it because I know what you really do. So let's talk about maybe some basic principles of finances that apply to every person really, because your business should be supporting your lifestyle, not the other way around. And that's where I think, everybody, including myself, we make the mistake when you start a business, you go crazy for years, thinking that you have to do everything just for the business, and then your personal side suffers. So, can you expand on that a little bit and tell me about the whole household management and maybe just some simple tips that anybody that's watching this can go and implement tomorrow in their life?
Okay. Well, first of all, your household's a business. That's the first basic we have to understand. All activity is a business, actually, living in an economic world that we live in, a money-based world that we live in. But your household's a business because you have income, whether you from investments or from your salary or interest on an account. Those income streams all come in from different ways. You have expenses, your mortgage, utilities, and so on.
Yeah.
You have assets, things you own, like your house or cars or furniture. You have liabilities, things you owe, like mortgages and other kinds of debts. You have executives in the household, so it would be you.
Yeah.
Okay, so for example, a person who runs the household would be the CEO, whether it's you or a spouse. And then you have the CFO, Chief Financial Officer, one who manages the finances. That's a very important role to play, right?
Is it usually the same person or two people?
Can be sometimes. A household could be a single person or it could be an extended family. So whatever, all the people in a dwelling together would be a household, right?
Yeah.
But then you have your financial reporting every year, which is done to the IRS, and you report your income statement like a business does, and something called a balance sheet, which is a list of all your stuff and what you owe and what your net worth is. In the eyes of the IRS, you are a business. As a matter of fact, that's the only way they can tax you. So once we basically understand where we are and how that operates as a household being like a parent company to all your other economic activities, then we start looking at it from the proper perspective. Because here's what I see happen. People have a small business. And what they do is they try to manage that business and throw their life into it, and I'm going to have to learn marketing and personnel and how to deliver and quality control and all these different functions that are in every business.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is we put the business up here and we try to operate and operate and operate, hoping that some profit falls out the bottom into our hands.
Yes.
Well, that's called an inversion. Inversion is the exact opposite of the way it should be.
Yeah.
Your household is the parent company, because the only reason you went into business for yourself is because of of course, you want to be free to do what you want to do, which is, of course, the only way to do it, which is your way. And then you want to help people, and you want to have a place where you can call the shots. I understand all that. But there's also the economic rewards of taking the risk of owning a business. But if you go into it thinking, I'm going to try to put the business first and then eke out an existence, you're approaching it from the wrong direction. It has to be the business exists to serve the household. It serves you as the owner. So you have to make it produce, and you have to put in systems and make it so that it has a life of its own by putting a demand on it that it produces for you. And one of the ways to do that, which is the hardest thing to do, is to make sure that business pays you as the owner. Now, what most owners do is that they will sacrifice, like, I'm going to sacrifice myself to the business so that it has a life, and then I will basically be a martyr or some other kind of sacrificial lamb to make the business run, and then I can just maybe eke out something. I don't know. As a business owner, you are giving way more value to that business than anybody else is.
Yeah,
It uses your license, you have your credit worthiness, your capital, your time, your direction, all these things. So as an owner, you have the inalienable right to be paid first out of every dollar that business makes. And they say, Christopher, you don't understand. My business, no, I do understand. I have the same conversation with thousands of professionals. I can't do it. There's no possible way. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So, every business will be a bit different based on the economics of the business. But the point is this: pay yourself first. This is a concept that has gone back to the beginning of the written word.
Yeah.
And when you pay yourself first, what you basically do is you set up a safe haven for you to fall back on if the business doesn't work out, because it works out and doesn't work out. That's the
stats are against
entrepreneurial
you,
journey,
really.
right?
So,
but you don't spend this money. You take it out of the business on a weekly or monthly basis, and you put it into an account that you're not going to lose. It just goes off here into this, what I call a financial cul-de-sac. Money flows in, but doesn't flow out, right?
All right.
And when you do that, you create a higher condition, because you can always, theoretically, go back into that pool to save the business if you really have to. Of course, you'll never have to, because you have other tools to do that. But here's the thing. For a professional practice owner like a dentist or healthcare professional, 10% of practice gross income. Now, $1 million practice has $100 grand a year. It comes off the top into an account. It's just like, I never made it. For other businesses, it may be 2%, 3%, 5%. It depends on your economics. But what doesn't change is the fact that you as an owner are paying yourself first. Now, you're not going to spend that money now. No. You don't pull it out and then go blow it on a car or Winnebago or something. You put it into an account that you're going to touch only when you're no longer in the business, okay, which is quote unquote retirement, if you want to use that word.
Okay.
And if you do that, you will be amazed at what happens. First of all, you're going to accumulate some money that you're probably not doing now, which is a beautiful thing, because you now have increase of your financial well-being. But the other miracle that happens, which is you don't think about, is that your business always makes the amount of money you think you need. So if you put in an expense to pay the owner, the business will make more money just like magic.
Wow.
It's like somehow just like some miraculous thing that happens. Like, well, gee, we had this bill and the bill just got met with more income. How did that happen? Because everybody knows that we need to make money to cover our bills.
Yeah.
It's just really a simple thing. That's the group
Yeah.
agreement, right?
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Kinda
if
like
you just do that one thing, you're halfway home.
It's like, is it Parkinson's law that everything expands? If you have more expenses, you make more money, or if you make more money, you spend more money. It's kind of like you can live paycheck to paycheck on $1,000. You can also live paycheck to paycheck on $1 million.
I know.
It's
I see
kind of
people do
really,
it.
yeah. So it is one of the, I guess, universal laws because
It
it just
is.
happens all the time. But
right.
that's really cool, actually. I never thought of that. Maybe I need to start doing more of it. I think, isn't it the richest man of Babylon in Babylon, kind of where the fable was about this whole paying yourself first?
Well, I want to clarify that point because that is a book y'all should read, Richest
Yeah.
Man in Babylon by George Clason, 1926. But what he says in there is actually a bit non-workable. Like almost a heresy to say that, right?
Yeah.
But what he basically says is, that, the parable says, if you have 10 pieces of gold in your purse, you spend 9, and you keep the one piece of gold in your purse.
Yeah.
Well, that's not going to work because sooner or later, life is going to come along, and it's going to be less pain to pull that last piece of gold out of the purse to pay for it, rather than to go out and figure out some other solution.
Yeah.
So the moral of the story is you'll never save your way to that. It has to be actually an expense.
Yeah.
People hate to save money. People love to spend money.
Sure.
Right? So you're spending your way to your financial independence, not saving.
Nice.
Saving imparts
Yeah.
scarcity. Spending imparts abundance.
Yeah.
We always want to have the mindset of abundance.
It definitely sounds like mindset stuff for sure.
Totally
so,
mindset stuff.
That's pretty awesome. Well, before we dive into some of the success principles and some questions I have saved for you, if somebody wants to connect with you and learn more about all these principles and the stuff you do, what kind of way do you have to bring people in to find out more information or learn more?
Well, we have a web presence. My personal website is P as in Paul, pchristophermusic.com. And that's a great way to connect with me directly and get access to all of our other websites with Econologics and the work that we do with professionals.
Yeah, and we'll put the links and all that stuff somewhere around the video, so you don't have to get the spelling all totally right. But who would be, from people that are watching this, who is kind of the ideal person? Where should they be in their life for them to benefit from either working with you or any of the resources that you have? What is your ideal client per se?
Well, my ideal client is a practice owner, a professional who has been in business for at least 5 years, so gotten over all the startup, and mid-career, basically, who is interested in expanding their business, expanding their wealth and well-being, and because all of our products are all around that unique experience.
Yeah.
Of course, we have the same principles work for small business owners,
Sure.
who are in different lines of work. But that's really who we serve the best.
Yeah, awesome. Well, definitely go check it out. Click the links. Go do your research, because I think this is one of the most important topics. I've learned my own lessons in my life by not being all that financially savvy. So I'm strongly recommending people to check it out. So now let's dive into some of the success questions that are kind of the theme through all the overnight success interviews. First, tell me about your why. Why do you do what you do? Why do you get up in the morning and actually, do what you enjoy? What's your why?
That's a great question. I'm gonna tell my why, because I actually was working out with a trainer yesterday, and I was mentioning this on the way in here this morning. So I'm going to use that because that is really probably the best locution of my why. And the why of what I do is I've always been interested in money. When I was
it sounds like it from the.
I just have been. I think it's a
Yeah,
fascinating
me too, so.
subject, and I think it's integral. It's as integral as having a human body. You have to know your body because you have it with you your whole lifetime. Well, in this day and age, we have an economy that is with us our whole entire lifetime. We must know something about it, or we'll be victimized by it, just like with our bodies.
Yeah.
So I looked at it from that perspective, and when I was learning all of this financial stuff, I attended many real estate seminars. I attended stock trading seminars. I've read, I can't remember how many books on these subjects. And one of the issues I had with a lot of the financial training that I got was, in order to get the deal, the real estate deal the stock deal, you had to take advantage of somebody else who was in distress.
Okay.
You know, like the stock trade. You
Yeah.
knew something the other guy didn't know.
Yeah.
Or in the real estate, the person made very bad financial decisions. They had to liquidate
Yeah.
in bad circumstances. Then you could swoop in with some low ball offer and you get the deal. And everybody's doing high fives on this stuff. And I'm looking at it going, I don't really. Something in me was like, this isn't right. It doesn't make sense to me that this would be the way to build wealth. But around you see examples all day
Oh, yeah,
long
for sure.
of how this operates. So I took a look at it and I said, you know what? I don't want to do that. I could be way wealthier than I am today had I had that approach.
Yeah.
But what my interest was in is actually helping the person that was being taken advantage of to be knowledgeable enough so they're not being taken advantage of.
That's really cool.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, so I really got it focused on the educational side, which led me down the path of where I am now, because how can you learn not how to be taken advantage of when there's no technology
Yeah.
on how to learn what to do and what not to do in our modern financial existence.
Yeah.
So that is really why I do it. I got mad
Yeah.
at the where everybody was celebrating.
Sure. I can totally see it, and that's really awesome way to do it. And speaking of, like, circling back to the value we talked about in the very beginning, adding more value, like how awesome value added item that is to people's life, instead of just taking advantage, to actually give them something, that they wouldn't get anywhere else. So that's pretty noble why, for sure.
One more comment. Another reason why is I wanted to have a great financial experience myself. I'm a professional, and I wanted to be able to have confidence in my own decisions and so on. So everything I did for me originally. I'm the original guinea pig on all this, and I tested it out on me, and I spent $1 million out of my pocket finding out what didn't work.
That's a good.
Which is probably pretty cheap, actually.
Yep.
But anyway, I codified it so that I knew it would work, and I just shared it with people. That's really what it comes down to.
That's pretty awesome.
Thanks.
So, for people that are in this entrepreneurial world, and there's a lot of commitment and a lot of discipline that you need to run your days and stay committed, so you don't just stay in bed all day. So tell me about your day, a typical day in Christopher's life.
It's varied a lot, my days. Some days I wear a lot of hats nowadays.
Yeah.
We're still working on systematizing some of those pieces. But it's my job to, as a founder of Econologics and the companies that we have, is to constantly research and develop new products, new services for our particular client. So I spend a lot of time in research, and study, and investigation, and all that stuff. I spend a lot of time in administration. I'm still doing sales calls. I'm still responsible for compliance for our investment firm. All these different areas really kind of tug and pull at my time, not to mention the fact that I travel a lot. I do a lot of public speaking, a lot of writing, and a lot of interaction with the public. So, it's really a hodgepodge these days of all these different things.
But I think that one of the points I want to take out of what you just said is you can definitely dream about a 4-hour work week lifestyle, but I don't know anybody really that works 4 hours a week and have everything going. Most people that are on this show and that I know in my life, they definitely work way more than that. So it just shows you still have to continue to build the systems, improve on things. Stuff happens in the business. So just kind of don't be all bummed up if after 6 months of starting your own business, you don't work 4 hours a week and spend the rest on the beach. So it's not going to happen. So, right? I think when I started my own business, I still laugh at that, because I used to work at a job with 2 weeks of vacation time. And I wanted to spend a month going to the Czech Republic, where I'm from. And I figured if I go on my own, I can, spend 4 or 6 weeks out of the year traveling, going to Czech and seeing my family. And as soon as I did it, I didn't go to Czech for 3 years, because I didn't have 1 week of vacation after opening the business. So
there you go.
I know, it's crazy. So besides work, what do you do for yourself? So part of your daily routines, what do you kind of need to add so you can run 1,000,000 miles an hour, travel, doing all this business stuff? How do you take care of yourself?
Well, that's a good question.
You mentioned a trainer yesterday, but I'm sure there's more to it.
I think it's pretty easy to not take care of yourself.
Oh yeah, of
You
course.
know, because you're constantly trying to help others all the time, and you know, I'm fortunate enough to surround myself with people who care about me and make sure that I do take care of myself. So I guess some of the things I do is, you know, I try to eat healthy. That's not always easy when you travel, but I try to do that. Exercise. I enjoy exercise. I just started a training program.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because some personal goals there. A lot of cycling, which is very therapeutic for me.
That's cool.
But I also like I like research. I'm one of those nerds where, you know, one of the things that I really enjoy doing is self-improvement. I look at research being self-improvement because I always learn something.
Yeah.
And part of the therapy for me is, you know, we all like sensation, right? We all like to feel alive and so on. And one of my favorite sensations is when I'm reading something and I'm figuring out something and I get that aha moment. You know, that exhilaration that you get when you go, oh my God, you figure out how this works and you see how that and you know, I get like a kid, you know, it's like, oh my God. And I get quick and I start talking it out or writing it down or whatever because these are epiphanies. And epiphanies for an entrepreneur is like the fuel to me. A lot of what we do, that self-discovery. So that is one thing I do for myself is to make sure that I spend a lot of time in self-improvement.
That's cool. I don't think I've heard we've had anyone putting it that way yet, but that's pretty awesome actually. Yeah. Just do whatever, you know, makes you happy, whatever drives you.
That's the simplicity of it.
And that's it. So, and you know, your staff must love you when you send them those notes and the recordings that you do during your epiphanies.
Yes, exactly.
They have to implement it, I'm assuming, right? So that's always the entrepreneurial curse is the shiny object syndrome, where you come up with all these different ideas, and then you better have people around you to help you implement. So that's pretty awesome. Tell me about some books that you kind of put on the top of your list of must-have books, or maybe something that you read more than once that actually is that good that it's worth of reading multiple times.
All right. So I know that when this question is asked, it's like, read the book that's been published in the last 5 or 10 years by, you know, the guru of the day. You know, I'm not going to give you any of those books because those are, quite frankly, rehashes in many ways of books that were written a very long time ago that are pure and more based on natural laws. Without the marketing and PR stuff that you see in a lot of today's books.
Yeah, for sure.
So the first book I'm going to have you take a look at. Notice the dates of these. As I mentioned before, The Richest Man in Babylon, George Clason, C-L-A-S-O-N, George Clason, 1926.
Wow.
Okay, that's before the Great Depression. And this is it's a parable about a man in Babylon who wanted to learn how to be the richest man in Babylon. And it's a beautifully written, beautiful story. And it basically has all these natural laws in it. Things you all know. I mean, you've heard all these before. The second book I would have you read is That Thick. It's that thick. And it was written in 1754 by Benjamin Franklin, called The Way to Wealth.
Oh, that's cool.
And it is a simple little book, and every single page, it's a book that big, you can get it on Amazon, that has just beautiful, simple little natural laws in them.
That's
cool. Basic principles. The last one I'm going to tell you to read is actually a compilation book. If you get the paperback, it's not a paperback, it's a hardback. It is that thick.
Wow.
Now, it's actually 19 books in one. And it's called the Prosperity Bible. Now, this is a collection of books written between about 1750 and 1950. Okay? And these are books that are some of the best books ever written on prosperity. You have in there, for example, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. That's the first book in the series. You have As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. You have I think it's called The Success Key. All these different books written in 1800s, early 1900s that basically have a very similar theme. And it's been republished under things like The Secret or all these other, you know, modern concepts. But these guys were talking about this stuff back in, you know, a couple hundred years ago, and it's basically you get what you think. So if you want to be wealthy, think like a wealthy person. That's not rocket science. It's a natural law, right? So that is what I really recommend that you do. And I've had people read that book because I mention it in my seminars all the time. They come back to me a year later. That book changed my life. Well, of course it would, because it's probably more truth on your personal financial well-being than you probably have ever gotten from anything written in the last 100 years.
And I notice when I'm reading some of these books, it's like, oh, I heard this from this guru or that guru and this matter. It just really shows you that there is nothing probably left to be invented. It's just all the same principles. Everybody just takes it and wraps it in something different and delivers it as a new information today. But I agree with you. Every time I read some of these older books, it's same stuff, same principles, same laws. So that's pretty awesome. Okay, so we talked about books, and now let's talk about people. Who are some of the most influential people in your life?
Well, first of all, I have to say that the people that I hang out with that are part of my group and my purpose are the most important. You know, my wife Diane, my partner Eric, Mendy, my marketing director, and they've been with me since the beginning of this Econologics, evolution. Cool. You know, and my whole staff is just all on the same purpose, and we all help each other and have this group going forward on this purpose to help people.
I think the point really would be, make sure you have mentors, make sure you have someone that is in your life to helping you with your mission, your cause, and all that.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. And I love the staff thing though. Like I don't know if you were just lucky or if you know how to hire them, but to have people with you still today that you got in the very beginning, that's pretty impressive, because most people go through a lot of turnover when it comes to staff. So
it is both luck and skill.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So the last thing I want to ask you for the interview is your definition of success. And the reason that I'm asking this question at the end of every one of our guests is because success really means something else to each person individually. So I just like to show you the perspective or different perspectives from each of these interviews. So what do you have to have in your life to feel successful? What does success mean to you personally?
What does success mean to me? It has changed over the years. And I think as you go through the life experience, your definitions of things change.
Yeah.
I will tell you what it used to be and what it is now.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
Okay, good. So my definition of success back when I was in my early 20s was to have the business, the income, the car, the net worth, the this, the that, so on and so forth. That mid-20s, conquer the world type of point of view, right? And as the gray hairs have come in and been lost, you gain more wisdom, I think, as life experiences come through, and you discover the effort it takes to achieve anything worthwhile.
Yeah.
And so really my definition of success has changed because really at the end of the day, I interact with people from all walks of life all day long. And to me, successful living is being able to interact with that person and be able to improve their condition greater than what it was when I found it.
That's awesome.
And if I spend my day doing that with the people that I come across, whether in one-on-one conversation or speaking to a room of hundreds or thousands of people, it's the same thing. And of course, the feedback you get when you do that is fuel. I mean, it's what validates that you're actually creating an improved condition for somebody.
That's really cool. And so I said it was the last question, so let's do the last question.
Okay.
Because I know you're married, and one of the whole statistics of divorce that's happening, all that stuff, I always kind of want to pick people's brain on what makes their relationship with their spouse successful. So is there like one little thing, one little nugget you can share with us, what you are doing in your marriage that actually you would think is part of the being successful in that relationship?
I think the biggest thing is that we're partners.
Yeah.
We're just partners. We're partners in business. We're partners in being married, and we have a lot in common, and we work together from that point of view, and it makes it work.
Anything you guys do on a regular basis to keep things alive, date nights,
anything of course.
That
all
you
that
do,
stuff has to
like
be
something specific that people can actually take and implement?
Yeah, well, you just take time away from the business, and you just say, okay, we're going to take time away from the business and not discuss business for a long weekend. We just got back from a trip to Europe.
Yeah.
You just take it and you recharge, and
Yeah.
you then come back refreshed, attacking the problems that come in from
Yeah.
the business and
Yeah.
elsewhere.
So separating the business and personal, and really actually
You absolutely have to do that.
being present and focused when you are.
Absolutely have to do that.
I think that's an awesome advice. So one day we'll just compile all this stuff and get all these perspective. It'll be the new Think and Grow Rich 2020 edition or something one day that I'm excited about. So yeah. Hey, Christopher, thank you so much for being here. It was
Thank you.
awesome. All right, I really enjoyed this interview. I hope you did too, that you got some really awesome nuggets from this interview that you can go and implement. Please do focus on the implementation, because everything that we've covered in this interview, if you just brush through it and don't ever do anything with it, then it was just a waste of time. Hopefully we did at least give you one thing you can take and use in your life. Remember, implementation is the difference between success and failure. So go do something with the information. And as we always say at the end, wake up and be successful.